Have you ever wondered why the price of that concert ticket for your favorite artist is sky high, selling out in minutes? Or why a specific kind of trendy sneaker becomes impossible to find? What about why gas prices suddenly surge, or why certain fresh produce at the grocery store seems incredibly cheap one week and astronomically expensive the next? It feels like some invisible force is pulling the strings, dictating what things cost and how much of them are available. Well, you're right, there is an invisible force, and it's one of the most fundamental ideas in all of economics: supply and demand. This isn't some dry, abstract theory for economists in ivory towers. This is the heartbeat of our everyday economy, constantly at work in every transaction you make, every product you buy, and every price. You see, understanding supply and demand is like getting a secret decoder ring for the world around you. It explains why a new iPhone costs what it does, why housing prices in your city might be soaring, or why that hand sanitizer disappeared from shelves during a global health crisis. Let's pull back the curtain on this invisible hand and see how it truly rules the market. Understanding demand, what people want when they want it. Let's start with demand. Simply put, demand is how much of a particular product or service people are willing and able to buy at different prices during a specific period. It's about consumer desire combined with purchasing power, and there is a fundamental rule that almost always holds true. It is called the law of demand. The law of demand states that, all else being equal, as the price of a good or service goes up, the quantity people are willing to buy goes down. Conversely, as the price goes down, the quantity people are willing to buy goes up. Think about your own shopping habits. If a delicious chocolate bar suddenly goes on sale, you're probably more likely to grab a few extra, right? If your favorite streaming service suddenly doubles its monthly fee, you might start thinking about canceling or looking for alternatives. This inverse relationship between price and the quantity demanded is intuitive for most of us. But demand isn't just about price. Several other factors can shift the entire demand for a product. Regardless of its current price, these are often called demand shifters. Tastes and preferences are huge. If a new fashion trend emerges, demand for those clothes skyrockets. Think about the sudden resurgence of Crocs or the consistent demand for ethical organic food options in Europe. A change in what people like or dislike can massively boost or slash demand. Your income also plays a big role. As people's incomes rise, they generally demand more normal goods like dining out, new cars, or vacations. If incomes fall, they might demand more inferior goods, cheaper alternatives like generic brands or public transport instead of taxis. The price of related goods matters too. If the price of coffee suddenly doubles, many people might shift their demand to tea, which is a substitute. If gaming consoles become super cheap, the demand for video games and accessories might surge, because they are complements often bought together. What people expect to happen in the future can affect demand now. If you hear that gas prices are going to jump next week, you might rush to fill up your tank today, even if prices haven't changed yet. And simply, the number of buyers in a market, whether due to population growth or new market entries, directly impacts overall demand. Let's look at a powerful real-world example. The sudden surge in demand for toilet paper in early 2020, during the initial phases of the COVID-19 pandemic. Was it because the price dropped? Absolutely not. Prices actually stayed pretty stable, if not slightly higher. The demand skyrocketed primarily due to expectations. People feared prolonged lockdowns and shortages, and panic, a change in collective preference driven by fear. This completely overwhelmed the usual supply chains, leading to empty shelves even at regular prices. Understanding supply, what producers are willing to offer. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. Supply. Supply is how much of a particular product or service producers are willing and able to offer for sale at different prices, during a specific period. It's about how much businesses can make and want to sell, and like demand, supply also follows a fundamental rule: the law of supply. The law of supply states that, all else being equal, as the price of a good or service goes up, the quantity producers are willing to offer for sale goes up. Conversely, as the price goes down, the quantity they're willing to offer goes down. Imagine a baker. If cupcakes sell for just $1 each, they might only bake a few dozen because their profit is low. But if cupcakes suddenly start selling for $5 each, they'll likely bake many more, maybe even hire an extra helper, because the profit potential is much higher. This direct relationship between price and the quantity supplied makes sense from a business perspective. Higher prices mean more incentive to produce. Just like with demand, factors other than price can shift the entire supply curve, impacting how much producers are willing or able to offer at any given price. The cost of inputs is critical. If the ingredients for our baker's cupcakes, flour, sugar, eggs, become more expensive, their cost of production goes up, and they might be less willing to supply the same number of cupcakes at the old price. Technology improvements can significantly boost supply. A new, more efficient manufacturing process for smartphones allows companies to produce more phones at the same cost. The number of sellers also impacts supply. If more companies start producing a certain product, the overall market supply will increase. Government policies like taxes can increase costs and typically decrease supply, while subsidies can decrease costs and typically increase supply. What producers expect to happen in the future can also shift supply. If they anticipate higher future prices, they might hold back some of their current supply to sell it later for more profit. And finally, natural events like droughts or floods can devastate crops, leading to a massive decrease in supply. Let's consider a major recent example, the global microchip shortage that heavily impacted industries from cars to game consoles during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. The demand for electronics skyrocketed as people worked and learned from home. Simultaneously, many microchip factories faced shutdowns or reduced capacity due to lockdowns and supply chain disruptions. This wasn't about the price of chips decreasing. It was a dramatic decrease in supply caused by factory closures and disruptions in input availability. This shortage of a critical input then impacted the supply of everything from new cars, leading to long waiting lists and higher prices, to PlayStation 5 consoles, making them incredibly difficult to find at retail price for a long time. The invisible hand at work, supply and demand in action. Now, let's bring these two powerful forces together. In a free market, demand and supply are constantly interacting, constantly pushing and pulling, to determine two things: the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. The equilibrium is the sweet spot, the point where the quantity of a product that buyers are willing and able to purchase is exactly equal to the quantity that sellers are willing and able to produce. It's where the interests of buyers and sellers meet, creating a balanced market. What happens if the price isn't at equilibrium? If the price of a good is set to high above the equilibrium price, producers will want to supply a lot, but consumers won't want to buy much. This creates a surplus and excess of unsold goods. Think about clothes that don't sell at full price and end up on the clearance rack, or new car models that sit on dealership lots for too long. When there's a surplus, producers have an incentive to lower prices to sell off their excess stock, pushing the market back towards equilibrium. Conversely, if the price of a good is set too low below the equilibrium price, consumers will demand a lot, but producers won't be willing to supply much. This creates a shortage. Demand far outstrips supply. Think about those highly anticipated concert tickets that sell out in seconds at face value, only to appear on resale sites for astronomical prices, or a new video game console that's impossible to find 4 months after launch. When there's a shortage, consumers are willing to pay more, and producers have an incentive to raise prices or produce more, pushing the market back towards equilibrium. Markets are constantly dynamic. Changes in any of those shifters for either demand or supply will move the equilibrium point, leading to new prices and quantities. Consider the housing market in many cities. For several years, especially after the pandemic, we saw a surge in demand for housing due to factors like low interest rates and a desire for more space. At the same time, supply was often constrained by rising material costs and labor shortages for new construction. This combination of strong demand and constrained supply pushed housing prices to historic highs, adjusting to a new, much higher equilibrium price. Or look at electric vehicles (EVs). Initially, prices were high due to low supply and high production costs. As technology improved and more manufacturers entered the market, supply grew. Simultaneously, demand shifted due to environmental concerns, rising gas prices, and government incentives like tax credits. This ongoing interaction is constantly driving the EV market to new equilibrium points, with prices becoming more competitive and adoption accelerating. Conclusion: the unseen force in your daily life. So there you have it. Supply and demand. It's not just an abstract concept from an economics textbook. It's the invisible hand that shapes virtually every aspect of our economic lives. It explains why some products are cheap and plentiful, while others are scarce and expensive. It tells us why industries grow and shrink, and why prices fluctuate. Understanding this fundamental interplay empowers you. As a consumer, it helps you make smarter buying decisions. As a business owner, it helps you price your products effectively. As a citizen, it helps you understand the forces shaping your local and global economy. The market is a constantly evolving conversation between what people want and what producers can offer. And at the heart of that conversation, silently, powerfully, are the twin forces of supply and demand, forever pushing and pulling, dictating the dance of prices and quantities in our intricate economic world.